Hello, this is SimzArt. I'm an illustrator and comic book artist. In this video, I'm going to show how to create artworks using digital watercolors in Clip Studio Paint. In the previous video, I showed you some of the settings necessary to create a digital watercolor brush. In this video, we will continue our exploration and we will see other features that are gonna contribute in the creation of our first digital watercolor brush. In the brush tip section, we will just lower a little bit the hardness of the brush tip. The softness of the tip, it's gonna add a little bit more to the realism of our brush stroke. Before we continue, let's check what happens if we change the hardness on our brush stroke. If we set it to the higher amount, we will get a very hard edge, and to the lowest, we will get a very soft, almost airbrush type of look. Moving to spray effects, I will change the particle size to 25, and then I will edit the particle size dynamics, selecting random and also pen pressure. I will set pen pressure to 30 and the minimum value of the random, it's gonna be 25. These settings can of course be changed according to your taste, but they are meant to be a way to create variety in our brushstroke and avoid that repetitive look that often we see in digital brush strokes. Let's take a look of how every one of these settings change the behavior of our brush stroke. So we set the particle size to 25 with a pen pressure dynamic of 30 on the minimum value, which means that each one of our particles, it's gonna be 25 pixels, and the minimum value, it's the 30% of 25 pixels. So we cannot have smaller than a certain amount of particles. If we set this minimum value to 0, as you can see from this preview up here, we will have very small dots if we have a very light pressure on our pen, and very big, up to 25 pixels, if we press very hard and to the max of our pen pressure sensitivity. If we set back to 30, and we change our particle size to, for example, 100, it means that each one of our stamps at maximum pressure, it's gonna be 100. But if we press very light, we can go down to 30% of 100. In this case, we will have something like this. Let's go back to the previous settings. And let's check the random. Random, it's gonna randomize the size in combination with our pen pressure, which means that if we set it 25, we will have a certain amount, 25% specifically, of randomness of the size, independently from our pen pressure. Going back to brush size, this check will make sure that if we increase the size of our brush, in Clip Studio, for example, we set the brush size to 100 and we go back to spraying effect. Now the particle size is gonna be 50 and not anymore 25. So this check, it's important to make sure that when we increase the size of our brush, all these settings are gonna increase their value accordingly. Now let's go back to brush size of 50. Let's go back to spraying effect. Let's check particle density. Particle density at minimum value, it's gonna have a more scattered type of look because the amount of particles that the program it's gonna spray, it's low. But if we increase this value, we will have a higher amount. I wanna say that if you increase this particle density, of course the program it's gonna probably take more time to render the brush stroke, especially if you use large brush strokes with a high amount of pixels. Going to the spray deviation, if we set it to a low value, the arrangement of each particle, it's gonna be on the outer edge of our brush stroke, like you can see from this thumbnail down here. And if we increase it, the particles are gonna go toward the center. The next step is the brush stroke. In the stroke tab, I will change the gap from 3 to 2. This will give more distance between each brush stamp, and which means a more rugged look that will be more similar to how a watercolor brush will behave on paper. Now let's see how to create a texture. First, open your texture. In this case, this is the one that I made based on real paper, and convert the brightness to opacity going in Edit, Convert Brightness to Opacity. The next step is right-click on the layer and click Convert Layer. Here we can select the expression color, which is gonna be gray, and the type, which is gonna be image material. Let's press OK. Of course, let's turn off the previous layer because now we will have a duplicate layer. And finally, let's go to Edit, Register Material, Image, and in this window, we will click on the material name and select our favorite name, activate Use for Paper Texture, Use for Brush Tip Shape, activate Tiling, and find the save location, then press OK. With this texture, let's go back to the Subtool Detail. And let's go in the Texture tab. Here we will select the texture we just created and change every setting according to our picture. In this case, I will select texture density to 100, scale ratio to 300, brightness to 5, and contrast to 50. With these settings enabled, our watercolor brush is almost complete. In the next video, I'm going to show you the last settings and then we're gonna test it. I hope you find this information useful, and as always, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. See you next time. If you like this video, you can find more about my work on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. See you next time.